Hey everyone, and welcome to another installment in the Halo implementation series. With me today, again, I have my favorite person. I have Mr. Halo himself, the legendary legend of all legends. I think by now you know who he is, Mr. Morgan Aspinell. And today we're going to talk all about the sales process in Halo, kind of all the way from quoting to sales, kind of everything in between. So, hey Morgan, how you doing? And thanks for joining me again.
Hey Chris, always a pleasure. Yeah, as Chris mentioned, so the last few sessions that we've done, we've taken a look at projects and we've spoken about the creation and the tracking of projects. Today, we're going to take a step back and we're going to think about what happens before that project is created, namely tracking the opportunity, raising a quote that gets accepted, that then subsequently has a project created from it. So let me share my screen. Cool. I suppose we'll start off by highlighting the fact that our opportunities in Halo are just tickets of a certain type. Now, what that means is all of the configuration options that we've seen previously regarding our service desk and our projects are applicable here to our opportunities as well, by which I mean rules, views, column profiles, workflows, actions, statuses. These are all applicable to our opportunities. There are some specific configuration options that we'll take a look at that are specific to ops, but generally speaking, we're talking about tickets of a certain type and the associated configuration behind that. So I think what we'll start off by doing is just taking a look at our CRM area, breaking that down, highlighting the similarities between the other areas that we've seen. Then we'll go through the process of tracking an opportunity from start to finish, and we'll have a look at the configuration options along the way and make a couple of changes to improve the opportunity workflow in this instance. So without further ado, what we'll do is we'll head into our CRM area. And you'll see here, very similar setup to our service desk and our projects area. We've got our viewing pane on the left-hand side, where at the minute we're viewing our opportunities by agent. Again, we can create bespoke lists, view by status and so on. And then on the right-hand side, we have the main list of ops in here. Now, one of the key differences or one of the special configuration points for ops is the ability to use or add a potential value to the op, something that would not be applicable to an incident or a project per se, but something that is applicable to our opportunities. So we have our potential value field, which is simply added to the field list for our opportunity type. Now, again, way back when we looked at field lists for ticket types, well, the information that goes onto an opportunity is added via the field list for an opportunity type, which you get to again in configuration. But instead of going into tickets this time, we're going to go into sales, and then we're going to go into opportunity types, and we'll see in our opportunity in the field list, we have our potential value here. So this is a field specific to our ops. We also have a conversion probability. We'll see how we can manipulate this shortly. And then we have our opportunity value that is potential value multiplied by conversion probability there. Cool. So yeah, as you can see, very similar setup. We can use our column profiles just like we can with any other area of the service desk or projects. So now let's take a look at tracking an opportunity, where we see the next key distinction between ops and service tickets. And that is the ability to raise an opportunity against a new contact or an existing customer. So with our service tickets and our projects, we have to raise those against existing customers, existing end users in the system. However, with opportunities, of course, this could be a brand new prospect, no users or customer record in Halo at this moment, at which point we can create this against a new contact where we can fill out company name.
Yeah, and the good thing actually about this, just while you're doing that, is you know, in a lot of the other PSA tools, you have to actually create an account first, and then you know, you have a drop down on the account that says what type of account it is. Is it a lead or a customer or prospect or whatever the case might be? The account has to be essentially created first before you can create the opportunity. So this is kind of nice because this just keeps it completely separate. So if they never really turn into any kind of business, you're not kind of messing up with your customer list and you know, and separating your customer list essentially between leads and prospects and customers and stuff like that. So I kind of quite like the way that it does it here.
I think, yeah, I agree to a certain extent. I think we are going to be making changes at some point in the future to allow for that type of behavior to occur, because I guess there's two sides to it. On the one hand, you're absolutely correct. You want your customer list to contain your customers, not your customers and your prospects. But on the other side, it does make things a little bit more difficult to actually see at a glance the list of prospects that you have in the system. You know, whereas a more conventional CRM tool would, or some of the other PSA tools would have that facility. So it is something that we're going to be including in the future. At least include the option should people want to use that option.
And I think, yeah, I think that's one of the things that is quite hard at the moment, is being able to, you know, once this is entered in there, there's no real place to kind of go and say, show me a list of who all my leads are. And so even if you did it from the lead screen or from, you know, from somewhere within the opportunity screen, rather than doing it from the customers or the client screen, do it here, and then, you know, just have a button and say, you know, show me all my active leads or something like that. But yeah, I think that,
well, yeah, for sure. And, you know, thinking out loud, we could achieve that functionality with Halo configuration today. I've seen in the past, instead of just a generic opportunity type, several different opportunity types: new customer, existing customer sale, you know, account management upsell or something like that. So that we could go down that route and create different opportunity types, which again we could do from configuration, sales, opportunity types. And we could just clone the existing opportunity and call it new customer sale. Or alternatively, we could create a custom field for a type of opportunity, which we do have here baked into the trials. But we might want to have a separate field that is exactly that, you know, new customer or existing customer, and then add that to our column profile and return that information accordingly. So there are ways that it can be done. It's just, yeah, it's not native right now. But that's not to say that you can't get that list very easily. So. Cool.
Okay.
Right, let's go ahead. Raise. Oh, sorry, Chris.
No, I was going to say, yeah, it makes sense. It's yeah.
Managed service, 5 licenses plus onboarding projects. Let's do something. Thank God for Grammarly. Cool. So again, the form that we're filling out here is just composed of the field list we have in our opportunity type. We've covered that on a couple of occasions in previous sessions, so I won't go into too much detail there.
Okay.
Cool. So again, very similar screen to what we've seen previously. We can break this screen down into 4 sections as well, where we've got our activity, we've got our opportunity information, we've got our end user, or in this case, contact information, and then we've got our actions at the top here. One key difference is as we're raising this opportunity against a new contact, i.e. a user that does not exist in Halo at this moment in time, we have the ability from the op to create the customer without, you know, going into a separate module and having to remember all of the information. We can actually do that straight from here, which we'll see shortly.
Okay.
Cool. So let me follow the workflow through, where initially we're going to be qualifying our opportunity. which then leads us on to our next action, where we're going to be creating our quote / proposal. So let me click into this. So yeah, at this point, we're building our quote out. Now, various configuration options here. Of course, we're going to be adding our lines to our quote. We're going to see how we can add groups and templates and so on. So let's just call this one new, managed service. So yeah, the first option against our quote when we're adding our lines into our quote table is to add from our existing inventory. And this is the list of items / products that we already have in Halo. So let me just do let's do an implementation and laptop, and then we'll do 5 licenses, 5 business basic licenses, just like so. So we're adding to this table by selecting the respective quantities of what we actually want to add in. And you'll see that I can add more than one line at any given time just by populating the more than one quantity box. Save that, and that's then going to direct me to the sort of the product edit screen, I suppose, or the quote line edit screen. Now, everything that we see here, it has been inherited from the configuration of the associated product. However, I do have the opportunity on a quote by quote basis to amend these details. One point to bear in mind is if we make changes on this screen, we're not editing the default information against the product. So our default price here is 150. I can make that 180. However, the next time I add this new managed service onto another quote, it'll be 150 again. So this is just editing the information for this particular quote /
correct. Yeah, so it's for the quote, it's for that line on the quotes only. Yeah, it doesn't go back in and change, as you say, it doesn't change the product. I think it's the same in most tools, and most of them are the same. It allows you to overwrite stuff here specifically rather than doing it at a global level. Yeah,
for sure.
Okay.
Not going to worry too much about stock location. We will cover stock at another time. The important points to consider for this session is obviously the quantity, the cost. This is your internal cost for this line. If this was hardware, this would be what you're paying your supplier. Of course, there's the price, which is what you're charging the customer. And you've got the markup here as well. So we might actually want to put our cost in here and specify a markup, at which point we get our price returned to us. A more recent addition as well is this opportunity, or this ability to mark a quote line as being a bundled line. Now, what that means is when we mark a line as being a bundled line, the price, the customer facing price gets set to 0, and the line is not returned on the quote or invoice PDF from Halo. And the intention for this is you might have a security package that might have, like Bitdefender and RMM costs, something like that. And you don't necessarily want to show the customer the breakdown of what that security package is charged at, because at that point the customer might say, okay, well, your Bitdefender line, I'm happy with that price, but actually I don't want this. I don't want to pay for this Ninja agent, so can you take that line off? So instead of having a complete breakdown of every single line within a package, what you can do is mark lines as being bundled, and the customer won't see them, but they will still be present on the quote in Halo and on the invoice in Halo and on the invoice in an accounts package if we're syncing over to an accounts package. You'll see the cost as well is still present here, so you can report on profit analysis without having the prices for the customer all skewed. And the intention of using this is you have one line on your quote / invoice that the customer can see that is the price for the bundle. And then you have a series of lines below that are marked as bundled that the customer doesn't see, but you as the MSP will see.
Yeah, makes sense.
Lovely stuff. Okay. Another important point regarding our quotes and proposals is we have the ability to mark certain lines on our quote as being optional. Now, we're not going to make our implementation or our onboarding project optional. That is going to be mandatory, but we'll come back in and we'll add a bit of hardware and we'll make that optional. So I can go ahead and click save here, and then that's going to iterate through all of the lines that we're adding to our quote. So I add a laptop. Let's make this a laptop optional. And then we've got our business basic licenses, put a quantity of 5 in, stuff. Cool. So that's adding products from an existing inventory. Of course, there are situations where you just want to add a line onto the quote that doesn't equate to anything in your inventory. It might just be a one-time line that you're never going to be adding in again, at which point you can click add generic products. And that takes you straight to that edit screen, that edit window that we just saw a moment ago, but everything is blanked out. So we can actually put our own description in here.
And of course, again, with that doesn't then write back into the product catalog, right? That's just for this specific quote.
That is correct. Yeah. Yeah. So this is just adding a line onto the quote. This does not create a product. You'll never see this again, effectively. And that is the intention for these. You don't want to be too heavy-handed with your generic products.
Yeah.
Because again, further down the line, when you're starting to report on profitability for different product groups and different categories of products, these generic lines are going to make your life very difficult, right? The intention is to not use this as your inventory. If you're adding something to quotes multiple times, then you want to create a product for it. That would be my advice.
Sure.
But in those fringe cases where you just, once a year, you're adding this line on for a very specific quote, you can use the generic product or the generic one.
Yeah, and a use case of this, and I've seen this a few times, is maybe the customer has a specific requirement for a particular piece of hardware that you don't normally sell, right? They might want to, an HP keyboard, but you normally sell Dells or something, and they specifically want, or this Microsoft keyboard or Logitech, this specific keyboard that you never normally sell. Then you can just come in here and do it as a one-off. You never have to sell it again because it's only that customer. So yeah, or it could even be a specific piece of software that you bought it as a one-off for that customer, and you'll probably never buy it again. So you don't need to add it anywhere to your product list.
That's it. And then you can actually disable that generic product option altogether if you don't want your sales team to be using that at all, and you want to make sure that everything is in your inventory. Then in configuration billing general, we do have the option to remove the use of the generic product altogether, should you wish. Again, in Halo, there's a checkbox for everything. So
yeah, I wouldn't recommend turning that off for that exact reason, because you may want to just get to a point where, like I said, it's a one-off or something like that, and because if you tick that box, then you're going to have to go and create it as a product or an item or whatever, and you don't necessarily want to have it in your item list, as you say, moving forward. So I'd recommend not turning off that option.
Yes, yeah, that is a very valid point. I also believe that there's an option in configuration items and stock control where we can, in fact, allow items to be created directly from the quote screen. So there's a few options at your disposal here. You can use generic items or generic quote lines, bearing in mind that will never be added to your inventory. You can disable that if you want, but as Chris mentions, that's not necessarily something that you want to prevent from occurring. The happy medium here might be to actually allow items to be created directly from the quote screen. So instead of, if you can't find something in your inventory, instead of adding a generic line and having to remember to go in and create the product again after you create that quote, we could enable this option in items and stock control and actually create the item straight from the quote screen. Again, that comes with its own risks of, do you want to start creating items for every single line on a quote? it's up to you exactly how you use this, but these are the options at your disposal. Cool. Yeah, I'll leave that on. Lovely. So what we'll do with this ad hoc line is we'll mark this as bundled just as an example of what the customer will see. Brilliant. Save this. Oh, a couple of points that I forgot there actually. Let me hop back in. So I've saved that, and after you save the quote, what you'll find is that the quote is then opened on a separate tab for you to review. Before we go any further, let me just highlight some of these other options. So that checkbox that we were just referring to, allow the creation of products on quotes. By enabling that, I now have this create new item button here, where we'll see we're actually directed to the new product screen, where I can create the product and then add that straight to the quote. We'll come back and look at the options in these tabs in more detail in some upcoming sessions around billing and stock and all that good stuff. But yeah, after the generic product option, we have this add group of items. So I'm a big fan of this feature. A lot of people are, what am I saying? So you'll find that with quite a few of your quotes and proposals, you're actually looking to just add the same lines. They might diverge slightly, but you know, a new managed service might include an onboarding project, some licenses, and some hardware, just as an example, and a service agreement line as well. And that's going to be added every time. And this, again, you can start thinking about your packages and your bundles. You might have a security package that you sell quite frequently, and you don't want to have to add the individual lines in each and every time, and you don't have to. What you can do is you can click your add group of items. So what I'll do is I'll just pick my group here and I'll specify that I want to add everything in straight at once, save that. And we'll see straight away that's added 3 lines onto our quote, and they fall under this group header of standard laptop group.
Yeah, that's a feature I always like, because I think, you know, a lot of MSPs, as you say, you know, you're always selling that kind of stuff, right? A mouse and a keyboard and and I really like it, setting up groups where you can just say, you know, I've got all these things that I'm selling, and not having to go in and manually add them all the time. And I don't know, well, a lot of other PSA tools I see don't have this option, so this is really good. And whenever I'm on calls, consulting calls with customers on Halo, I always point out this feature, because I think it's something that most people tend to use quite a lot of. So
for sure. Yeah, so let's have a look at how we create one of these quote group templates. So we do that within our configuration panel under our quotations module. Click in here, and right at the top we've got this quote group templates button. So we've got our existing quote group template there, standard laptop group. Let's add in, let's just say new managed service, right? Now, basically what I'm doing here is I'm building the quote lines out, but I'm doing it once. And then once this is saved, I can call on this group template in the future and add that in with what we saw to be 3 clicks instead of, you know, 10, 15, especially as these become more comprehensive and you've got maybe 8 or 9 lines in here. You'll find that adding this in, it's going to make things quicker and more straightforward for the sales team, which I think everyone agrees we all want.
Yeah.
Cool. So new managed service, that's going to have our new managed service project. It's going to have our managed service agreement, and it's going to have some premium licenses. And again, you can imagine building these out to include the different types of packages that you do offer. Maybe you've got, you know, the old example of like a bronze, silver, and gold package that include different types of licenses, and some might include tools that others don't. If that is the route that you go down, then these different templates can accommodate that.
Yeah.
Cool. So we made our quote group template. We've added our three lines in once. And now what we'll be able to do, go back to our quote, add our group of items, and there it is, new managed service. And then I can add everything in straight away. Bang. They've all been added in. Now we'll see that those quote group templates have this header above them. So these are our group headers, and we can actually add ad hoc group headers to our quotes. And we can do that by clicking the add new group option. I might just want to say hardware. And then I can go into my particular lines where we have this group drop down, and I can move my quote lines under their respective group headers.
Yep.
You might have noticed as well that there is the ability to hide products within certain groups. So again, that's giving us that granularity of, okay, well, I want a breakdown of all the different bits of hardware that I'm offering the customer, but I don't want a breakdown of the services. This is the package that they're getting. They just need to know the price for all of that. You know, as the MSP, you're trusted to provide the best services. And so giving the customer too much control over that might actually be their own downfall. So yeah, you have the option to show or hide products within individual groups on our quote.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's really cool. I love that feature. I love the ability to be able to do this. And I know there's a bunch of kind of third-party tools that do this, but it's nice to have this built into the PSA tool that's kind of doing this level, because you don't see this again in lots of other PSA tools
Sure.
from a quoting perspective. So that's really cool.
Sure. Cool. And then finally, we have the option here. Well, finally, we have the two options here to either increase the price of all of our products, by a particular percentage, or we can add all of the existing lines from a previous quote onto this quote. So similar to our quote group templates, you might have a proposal that you previously quoted another customer, and you actually want to take that and put that onto this quote for this other customer, at which point I can just find that quote and add all of my lines in. Cool. So that's the creation of our proposals. I think we might wrap this video up here. There's plenty more to talk about that we will be discussing shortly, but before I go on to the next section, which also is about another 20 minutes, I think to keep the videos digestible, we'll leave this here, and then we'll catch up on what happens to this proposal after it's been created, have a look at the PDF, have a look at some of the options there. What do you think, Chris?
Excellent. Yeah, no, I agree. I think we want to try and keep these short, because I know we've made some long ones, and we want to be respectful of people's time and just make sure that we keep these short and sweet. So yeah, this is a great place to stop. And on the next video, we'll carry on with this process. We'll kind of, as you say, we'll talk about how to actually see what this quote looks like, how to send it over to the customer, all of those kinds of things. So so as always, Morgan, really appreciate it. Appreciate your time, and really appreciate that Halo is allowing us to do these. They are really helping the community. So really appreciate it, guys. And thank you to everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys. See you in the next one.
Cheers.